Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Brindleton Bay, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Cats and Dogs, and I'm going to be building a huge, and I mean huge, it ends up being absolutely colossal, family home. So I feel like, and I definitely have said this before in some of my longer form videos, but if I was you, I would highly recommend grabbing yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, hot chocolate, water, soft, whatever your drink preference is. Maybe even grab yourself a snack. I've personally got myself a cup of tea and a few biscuits because this one is a big one. So this week the video is 57 minutes with the screenshots added in. I think the actual pure speed build footage, so the actual video file itself, stands at around about 52 minutes. So it's a very big build. But this week, I just wanted to build something absolutely massive. I wanted to build something for my save file, and I also wanted to build something really wholesome. And I know I've said this before, but this is now my new favourite house that I think I've ever done. I'm just so happy and so proud of this build. It's literally taken me like the past 6 days to build it. I started filming it on Monday. I only finished it today. It's Saturday morning and I've only just finished this build, but I'm just so happy and so proud of it, and I'm really excited that I finally now can share it and just talk about it, and just, yeah, I'm really happy with it. So I really hope you guys like it. But anyway, getting on and actually talking about the build itself. So the house has 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, and it's built on a 40 by 40 lot. If you are curious where I built it, by the way, you can see in the top left corner, it's called, I don't know, I can't even say that word. I don't know why I was going to try and pronounce that. I probably can say the name, but I'll probably scuff it up. So you can see in the top left corner if you want to know where I built it, because I always keep the original lot name in the corner of my videos, just in case you want to download it, plop it into your game, the same place that I built it. But it's built on a 40 by 40 lot, and I am genuinely surprised with the amount of stuff that I managed to fit inside this house, because there is just so much going on. I think in terms of activities and just general things to do in a house, this might be one of the biggest ones I've done, because it's got the 6 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, but it's also got, well, for starters, one of the bedrooms has got a walk-in wardrobe. The way that I built the house, on the upstairs level, you kind of go up the stairs, which, by the way, I got to, you know, like when you have like a fancy staircase and it kind of, you can either go up the left-hand side of the stairs or the right-hand side, and it kind of like joins at the top. I've got a fancy staircase in this house, which I'm really happy about, because sometimes they're quite difficult to fit in, but this house has got a fancy staircase. But you go up the fancy staircase, and if you go right, you've kind of got like the parents' quarter of the house, because I decorated the bedrooms, by the way, to be one for a set of parents, one for a teen, one for a child, one for a toddler. Then there is a spare guest bedroom, and then there is also like a grandparents bedroom as well. But for like the parents section of the house, you walk up the stairs, you chuck a right, and you'll get this archway. Well, you go through the archway. On the left hand side, you've got their bedroom. In the middle, you've got their own bathroom, and then the right hand side, that's where their walk-in wardrobe is. And I'm so happy and also really proud of the way it turned out, because I tried to make it really custom to the house. Because something that I find whenever I try and make like walk-in wardrobes or like walk-in closets, I find that I can only really go towards 2 different kind of styles, because we've got some like wardrobe closet pieces from 2 different packs. We've got one from Dream Home Decorator, and then we've got one from Get Famous. The Get Famous one is more so kind of like clunks of like shoes put together and clunks of clothes, and they're kind of like 1 or 2 tile pieces, and you can kind of make a wardrobe as big or as small as you want. But the thing is that I find with them ones, they're that kind of like fancy style, and it's a lot of the furniture from Get Famous is like not my cup of tea. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just not my cup of tea. And so I don't ever really go towards them kind of like walk-in wardrobe features from that expansion pack. But then we've also got the Dream Home Decorator ones, which is a little bit more custom, and you can play about with them a little bit more, because they're kind of like shelving units and the individual clothes that kind of clip to the units itself. Basically, I use a ton of the tool mod in this build for both the walk-in wardrobe and just throughout the whole entire build itself. But I basically took all these different clothes rail, merged them into some like different shelves that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, and just tried to make it custom and also try and make it fit in with this house. Because on the inside, I wanted it to be a mansion. I wanted it to show that this family, they've got a bit of money, but I didn't want it to be that kind of like fancy. I wanted it to be very wholesome, very, I want to say countryside cottage feel, but I mean, me and you both know this is not a cottage by any means, but you know that kind of like wholesome, warm, cozy kind of feel. I wanted this house, even though it is absolutely massive, to feel very cozy on the inside. So there's lots of like soft furnishings. The wooden floor itself is quite a dark wood, but there are so many different fluffy rugs in this house. There's so many different like comfy looking sofas, and loads of different like piles of blankets and pillows, and just loads of different like soft pieces that make it feel really cozy and really welcoming as well. But yeah, there is a walk-in wardrobe in this house which I kind of like custom made. There is also 2 lounge spaces. One of them is a little bit more of like a relaxed kind of like family time kind of lounge space in there. That's where the TV is. There is also a TV in both the kids room as well as the teenagers room, but in terms of like family time, family TV, only one of the lounge spaces has a TV, and then the other one has like a wall of bookcases and then a wall of like trophies and cabinets on the other side, and then there's also like a grand piano just off that room. It's a little bit more formal, but then there is also a playroom in this house because this house does have a child, a toddler, and then a teen. Even though actually saying that, I imagine the teen probably couldn't give two that there is a playroom because, I mean, all of the stuff in there is stuff dedicated towards kids in the game and toddlers. So, you know, like dolls' houses. Oh, I placed down, you know, the puppet thing. Oh, what's it called? Do you know what I'm talking about? The thing that we got from the kids' room stuff, that is in there. And you know what? I feel like I never use that because it is so big and it is so hard to place into kids' rooms and toddler rooms. But in this house, where there's a playroom and it was a big enough space, that ends up being the little puppet show things. The kids can like play puppets and give shows to the parents, which is so adorable. I never really get to play with that in my own personal gameplay either because, again, it's just so hard to place down. But when I came into this house and I was playtesting it, I got my sim, like the Sims kid, to give a puppet show to their parent, and it was really adorable. But in the playroom there is like the puppet show, there is like a drawing table, there's loads of different like toys on the floor and just stuffed animals and stuff. But then in this house there is also a home office and a home gym. There is a garage space, which realistically, if I'm being honest, is quite pointless because in The Sims 4 your Sims can't actually drive cars. So whenever I create them in builds, I always make the inside into a bit of a bits and bobs room, a little bit of a miscellaneous room, basically a perfect place to put all of them weird things that you want to have in your Sims houses that normally struggle to find like a good home. So like a good example for this is like the candle making station or the juice fizzing machine, or you know them weird, I say weird, they're actually really fun in terms of gameplay, but you know them objects that will just look weird sitting in your Sims front room. Like you can't have a juice making station in your Sims lounge. I mean you could, but it might look a bit off. So a garage is a perfect space for all of them bits and bob kind of things. But in the garage in this house, there ends up being like a woodworking table, there is a card table, your Sims can invite their mates round, maybe on like a Friday or Saturday night, play a round of cards. There is also a few different beverage fridges in there, if you get my drift. There is also loads of different storage. So I put the, you know, the decoration box that we've got from Seasons, so when it comes to like different times of the year, different holidays, your Sims can go in there, rummage through the decorations and put decorations up. There is also loads of different like storage boxes, camping equipment. I'm pretty sure I chucked a few different bikes in the corner as well because, I mean, realistically, if you've got bikes, where are you going to keep them? You might as well just keep them in your garage. I feel like that's very a normal thing that people do. But then there's an attic as well in the loft, which is actually something that I never do. But when we spin the camera background, because I'm currently just doing the back garden, which, can we just give it a second for the back garden? I'm actually obsessed with it. I think it's my favourite it's my favourite house I've ever done, saying that. I was about to say it's my favourite back garden, but it's just all around my favourite house because I've tried to do a little bit of like a swim up pool that kind of like goes in a very slight L shape, if you see what I mean. I'm so happy with the whole entire house. But there is an attic at the front of the house above the garage, and I basically just wanted it to be like a realistic garage. So in there is a ton of different storage boxes which your Sims can actually interact with, because you know when you like, you know, in gameplay, if you get your Sims to go and get a few frogs, or they go fishing, or they go and harvest a few things, your Sims pockets very quickly can fill up. Something that I use a lot in my own personal gameplay, honestly, is an absolute lifesaver. There's these storage boxes that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, and basically you can open them up and just plonk all of your Sims stuff in there, and it is so handy, and also you can keep it really organised that way. But I placed a bunch of them in the loft. I also placed a few different suitcases because, I mean, in my own personal loft or attic, it's basically the same thing, innit? But in my own personal loft, I just have hangers, storage boxes, probably like family photos and stuff, and then suitcases when you go on holiday. And so I've chucked a few different suitcases up there. Some of the ones that I use are from the Werewolves game pack. And then I was also thinking as well, if you wanted to, 100% you can make that into a club hangout, because there is a ladder that goes into the attic. So it's in the garage itself, and there's kind of like a little ladder in the corner. You can climb up there and you just go upstairs. Like I said, it's just storage boxes and suitcases. But if you wanted to, I reckon that would be such a nice little hangout for either the kid or the teenager in this house. But then as well as that, there is also, because there is more, not much more, but there's also a pool house, which you would have seen in the back garden. So I use the, you know, the bifolding doors that we got from the latest kit, the Desert Lux kit. I use them bifolding doors into the pool house because I feel like that's the perfect place to use them, because if you've got a pool house, more so than not, you're going to have your bifolding doors open if you have got them type of doors, because then people can just kind of like go in and out, grab themselves a drink and grab themselves maybe like a pool floaty or whatever. Because in the actual pool house itself, I made it so it was part like functional things. Your Sims can go up to the bar, make himself a drink. There is also a darts board in there, but then there's also like a little door which goes off into like a storage unit. You know them like lounges that your Sims can go in the pool. I basically got a load of them. I moved objects, some of them, and I placed like one on the wall to look like it's just been like plopped in the corner. Like your Sims have been using it, they don't need it anymore, they don't want to use it in the swimming pool, and that is where they're stored. And then I think in terms of everything in this house, that is pretty much it. I say that's pretty much it. Like, that's not a lot. There's also obviously like the kitchen, the dining room. The kitchen, by the way, again, my favourite kitchen that I've ever done. I'm just so extremely happy and so extremely proud of this build. I quite literally, hand on heart, love every single centimetre of this build. Like I said, I started building this on Monday and I finished it this morning. I literally had, I think it's my longest build that I've done, but I had 16 hours and I think it was 20 minutes worth of recorded footage for this house. So that is why it is such a long video. But like I said, it's a big one. But I'm just so happy and just so proud of it. And I've just been so excited to share it, because I really hope you guys like it as well. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it in terms of what is on the inside of this house. There's also 2 laundry rooms, which actually, to think about, is not that interesting to point out. But just in case you're like me and you're someone that loves to get your Sims to do laundry in the game, and hoovering as well, because there's a few different hoovers or vacuums, whatever you want to call it. There is 2 laundry rooms in this house, which I don't think I've ever built a room, or built a room. I've definitely built a room before. I don't think I've ever built a house that's got 2 laundry rooms in, because I was about to say there is no actual point, but thinking about it, there is a point, because maybe it's just me, but my Sims, and in real life as well, me in real life, accumulate so much laundry, because the annoying thing about laundry in both the game and in real life, it's never done. You put a load on, you just put a fresh load of washing in the washing machine, you turn it on, you go upstairs, you have a shower, you do whatever, you change your clothes, and you've accumulated more. And so realistically, it's actually a really good idea to have 2 washing machines in The Sims, because my Sims, their washing baskets, they're never empty. But yeah, there is 2 in this house. There is one which is located kind of like by the kitchen area, and then there's one which are located by the pool house, because my thought process was, when your Sims go swimming, when they have like swimming trunks, bikinis, whatever they have, like their swimming suits, they're going to get really damp and wet and just not very nice, a bit minging. And so I was thinking maybe like all the different pool towels, like the beach towels and stuff, go into that laundry room that's by the pool house, and then the average kind of like everyday kind of clothes go into the other laundry room. Again, it's a bit over the top, but to be honest, there was room for it in this house. I thought, why not? But yeah, anyway, getting on and actually talking back about the build, because I've literally just spent the past 12 minutes just talking about what's on the inside. But I told you it's a big house. But as you can see, I've built the whole structure of the build. I've already come in and done the floor plan, all the windows, all the doors, all the structural pieces for the house itself are pretty much all done. I'm just going around now and just doing a bit of landscaping. Now, I do want to mention, because I always like to mention it whenever I do, that I was looking at a picture that I found on Pinterest when I was building this. I actually found the picture led to a different website, but I'll find the picture and I'll pop it up on the screen now so you can have a little look at what I was looking at when I was building it. Now, if you was to look at the picture, you can see that it's quite symmetrical, and I was really inspired, because it's an absolutely beautiful house. If this is in real life, I'm very jealous of the people that live there, but I was so inspired by the house, but I didn't want it to be very symmetrical in the game, because I feel like sometimes in The Sims, if you're trying to build a house and it is completely symmetrical and you've got like a middle piece, it can look a bit off. And so I basically ran with one side of the house, and then on the right hand side I basically decided just to do things that I felt looked nice and would go with the house and not copy what was in the original image, because like I said, it was pretty much the same as the other side. One thing that I did in this house, which I hadn't done before, curved walls. I ain't used them since this house, and they are a pain. I know what everyone's talking about now, because people were saying and expressing how annoying and how glitchy curved walls are, and I went into it, I was like, yeah, I'll be alright. It went alright. It was actually a proper pain to do it. I mean, it ended up being alright in the end, but when I was actually doing the floor plan, so you wouldn't notice, normally whenever I show my floor plans, I always like to show, like, you know, when I delete the inside walls to then rebuild the walls, I always like to keep that in, because maybe it's just me, but I find that really satisfying to watch. But I didn't want to make this video any longer than what it needed to be, so I decided to cut that out. And also, when I was doing that, I had a lot of trouble on the inside with like deleted the interior curved wall pieces, because the way that you build a curved wall, you can't just like build it and drag it out. It's kind of like pre-made rooms, and then you can kind of go in, and then in the interior walls within the curve, if that makes sense, you can then alter them. For some reason, when I was doing it, it was really glitchy and it was just a proper pain. I mean, it worked out in the end, but yeah, I know what everyone's talking about now. When everyone was saying curved walls are a massive pain, I now know that they are a pain. But I mean, it paid off, because the curved like tower in this house, I feel like really makes it, and it also really fits in with this type of style of house, which I'm not too familiar on how you actually say the name of this style. I'll pop it up on the screen. I would pronounce it for you, but if you've been here for a while, you know that I'm absolutely dreadful at pronunciations. And if there's words that I have not seen and are not in my normal vocabulary, I'm not very good at them. So I'll pop the name on the screen now of the type of house that this is, or at least what I tried to make it. But I feel like these are often a feature you see in this style of house. But anyway, getting back to talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm just going around and doing the back garden. I am so obsessed with this back garden. First of all, there is an outdoor like little fireplace area, which is the fireplace that we got from the free Desert Luxe kit. I say free. The promotion ends in a couple of days, so if you're watching this video when I post it, and I'm really sorry if you're watching this in the future, but if you're watching this video when I post it or the next couple of days afterwards, and for some reason you haven't got your hands on the free kit yet, please go and get it, because I'm going to serve as your last reminder. I've already reminded you, I think, like 2 times now. This will be my 3rd time, but there is currently a free promotional offer on this free Desert Luxe kit. You don't have to spend a single penny. You literally just download it, and it's just free stuff. You might as well, do you know what I mean? But yeah, I use the fireplace, which is from the new kit. These sofas over here as well are actually from the new kit. And then there is also like a swing set in the garden, a ton of different planters, that kind of like swim up pool kind of. Do you know what, I'm really surprised the game let me do that, because I don't know if you would have noticed, but the way that I built it into a foundation, and the foundation is on a different height to the foundation of the house. But then for some reason, and I don't know why, and I'm happy that it did, but for some reason it let me connect 2 different foundations of 2 different heights together, which normally is not the case in the game. For some reason though, in this build, it works. It works completely. There's no glitches. It just works as it should without any like problems, which really surprised me, because normally that's the thing that you can't really do in the game. But to be honest, I'm really happy that it let me do it, because I'm really happy with kind of like that swim up pool area. But as well as that, in the back garden, as you would have seen, there also ended up being some sun lounges, so your Sims can go out there and sunbathe. There also was like a chess table, and then like a barbecue area, and I'm pretty sure that is it in terms of what you can do in the back garden. I think I also placed down some of them footballs and soccer balls, and just, you know, them kind of like activities that your Sims can do. I really wish that we had like a football goal, because it would have been perfect for that back garden. But hopefully one day, if we ever get a more like generations focused game pack or expansion pack or something, we've actually got a really big stream happening on, I think it's Tuesday. So if you haven't heard of it, I'm pretty sure you have heard of it by now if you're someone that's very active on either Instagram or Sims Twitter. But there is this really big stream coming out, the Sims Summit, I believe it's called, and I'm really hoping they're going to announce something quite big, because they've been hyping it up for the past few days, and they've been really hyping it. I'm actually starting to get a little bit anxious, I'm not going to lie. But either way, moving on, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of this house, and I started off by doing the entrance hallway. I am so obsessed with this entrance hallway, because it is just so grand, so fancy, but then it's also so cozy, and also so welcoming and warm, and just, I absolutely love it. I don't think you'd be able to catch it in the footage of the actual hallway itself, but when I was doing the upstairs hallway, I placed down a chandelier, because basically the way the hallway works, you would have seen it when I did the floor plan, but the upstairs portion of the stairs is completely empty. So you kind of walk in for the front door, and you kind of got like a really tall ceiling, and you've got this really long chandelier, and it is so beautiful. But when I say chandelier, it's not like a fancy chandelier. It is one that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, so it's in that kind of style. And I just sized it up, and it kind of like drops down from the ceiling of the roof all the way down to like the bottom floor. Your Sims won't hit their head, it's fine. I did it so it's an appropriate height, but there is a really big chandelier in there. There is also 2 kind of like closet systems. So basically, as your Sims are walking through the front door, on the right hand side there's kind of like a door, which I actually did a trick where basically I made it look like the door had actually been opened, and it's kind of just been left open on its like latch. Is that the right way you say it? Anyway, you know what I mean. But I basically, in that room, I placed down 2 get together wardrobes. Now I was thinking them wardrobes probably store your really fluffy coats, your really just maybe like the snow boots, and just stuff that you don't wear on an everyday average kind of like outside attire kind of stuff. So that's where all of their stuff, like their proper fluffy jackets, are kept. But then on the other side of the front door, I placed down like another shelving unit. The one that I use is either from Cats and Dogs or Seasons, and I was thinking that's more so for like the everyday coat, your everyday handbag, hat, gloves, scarf, all that kind of stuff, like things that your Sims will use more so than not every single day will be placed onto that clothes rack, whereas the stuff that is maybe a little bit more seasonal, maybe they only bring it out at certain times of the year, are kept in the closet. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the kitchen. Now I feel like this is probably a really good time to mention, I have kind of mentioned it already, but as always, this house has been play tested, everything works absolutely fine. Do you know what? I ran into one problem when I was playtesting this, and it was in the upstairs level. I placed a plant too close to my Sim's bed, so my Sim couldn't get in on the left hand side of the bed. And that was literally it. And then, I mean, they could still get into the bed, they just couldn't get in from the left hand side. And I mean, I've mentioned this before, but whenever I playtest my houses, I am very thorough. Like I will get my Sim to sit on every single seat, I will get my Sim to look into every single mirror, test every single toilet. I'll get my Sim to test things that aren't even near anything, so I know that they work. But just for the peace of my mind, I want it to be completely true when I say to you, everything in this house works fine. And I tested it, everything worked, but in the teenager's room, my Sim just couldn't get in on one side of the bed. They could get to the bed and they can get in on the right hand side, but then if they wanted to get into the left hand side, they'd go onto the right and then they'd like scoot over, if you know the animation I'm talking about. I literally just budged it over a bit and it was fine. But surprisingly, the double oven in the kitchen didn't have a problem with that. And I was really surprised by that because I was thinking that I was probably going to run into some problems there. But yeah, the double oven in the kitchen, it works. The top one doesn't work. The bottom one, it works completely fine. The top one, you can basically use it as decoration because it's not something that your Sims can interact with. I'm pretty sure if you just put that into your Sims inventory and then just popped it elsewhere, the oven will still work. But because the oven itself is placed quite high, the animations don't work for like the tall oven. So your Sims will still use the oven, but they just won't use the top one. It will just be the bottom one. But I don't think I've ever done that in a Sims build before. I know that I've done it in custom content houses because there is a few different custom content pieces that I've got where it's kind of like a decorational piece instead of having to use the two ovens. But I just thought it was a really nice touch to the kitchen. I'm just so happy the way that kitchen turned out. It was quite big, and originally that wasn't going to be the kitchen. Initially when I was coming in and I was doing the floor plan, I was planning that to be kind of like a lounge space. I'm really happy I made that into the kitchen because the screenshots are so good for the kitchen. Because they look straight onto the outside and it's so bright, and you've got all these different like white flowers from all the different bushes, and some of like the pink roses from the bushes start creeping in. It's so picturesque, the whole entire house. I mean, the screenshots for this house, I'm so happy with. I spent so much time taking the screenshots and I had so much fun doing it. But anyway, moving on from that, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next room, which is the dining room. So in here, I basically tried to make this like kind of like custom cabinet piece, as you can see. So I've actually placed down these two cabinets, which are from cats and dogs. But originally, when you place them down into your game, they're made to be fitted to a medium wall height. So then basically what I did is I sized them down to fit the shortest wall height because that's what I'm building with. I never really ever seem to build with the medium wall height, and if I ever do, it's more so a medium wall height house and it's got loads of platforms, then it doesn't actually feel like a medium wall height, if you get what I mean. But I always normally tend to build in the shortest wall height. So whenever I want to size down objects that are like bookcases or cabinets, a good trick is to have the tool mod installed. You don't need to, you can just size it down normally, but I find that when I just use the size down key, which is the left bracket key, if you just use that, sometimes objects can then go either really small or they just doesn't size down correctly. I basically use the tool mod and then size it down so it was the perfect height. That way the plates on the top of the cabinet weren't poking through into the ceiling, and I just basically sized them down to a good size and then put them against the wall, and then there was kind of like a little gap in between them, and I didn't want to have like another cabinet added in because it would look really strange, and then there would be too many pieces overlapping, and there was glass in the cabinets, and sometimes when you try and overlap objects in the game that have glass in them, it can get very glitchy very quickly. And so what I decided to do is I just got a little side table, which is from Cats and Dogs, which the cabinets, like I said, are from Cats and Dogs, so they're in the same kind of like furniture style. I then just merged in this little side table, and it basically just looks like a little built-in unit, and then I placed down a little painting in the middle. It's just very, very calming in that room, and it's also got these really big windows, and I've actually failed to mention the window situation. I say the window situation, I'm making it out to be more dramatic than what it is, but I tried to make some custom really big windows in this house. Because it's such a big house, I wanted there to be lots of natural light coming in. I didn't want there to only be like a couple of windows dotted about here and there. I wanted it to be very bright, and I mean, as you can see, as I'm going around and I'm doing the building, the building as I'm going around doing the furnishing. The lighting in this house is just absolute chef's kiss. It is so beautiful, and I'm so happy about it because I use so many different windows, but I really wanted there to be like a big kind of like centerpiece window at both the front of the build and then the back of the build. And originally I was going to use these windows that we got from the Moschino pack. I know that's not how you say the name, but I can never pronounce the name properly, so I call it Moschino. But I was originally going to use these windows from the Moschino pack, but it's kind of got like these grids within the window, like within the glass panels itself, it's kind of like little square panels, but the squares, it's a weird thing to point out, the squares were too big for my liking, and so I decided to use these windows that we got from Snowy Escape, and I used a mixture of like 2 different sizes, and I basically just moved them together, and they are basically the same as the Moschino windows, but they're just much smaller grid sizes, if you get what I mean. I mean, it's a very small detail, but yeah, I made a few different like custom windows in this house, and then that way as well, when I was actually placing down the windows, where I'd already made like a custom window at the front of the build, when I was doing like the wall space at the back of the build, when I was placing down the windows, it wasn't one of them situations where I was like, I want to place a window there, but it doesn't really look right because there's not really enough space, or there's too much space or something. With the custom windows, you can just make it as big or as small as you want to. It's really handy. But yeah, there's a few different custom windows in this house. But anyway, as you can see, I finished off the dining room, and then I moved on into, surprisingly, that last room that you saw. It was just a hallway. Originally, like I mentioned with the kitchen was going to be a lounge space, like I've already mentioned, but originally that hallway space that you just saw me decorate with them 2-seater sofas was going to be kind of like a dining room. But then I realised the window placement, you know them custom windows that I'm just talking about, worked out perfectly for a dining room space at the back of the build, because there is just something so grand about having a massive window just seeing out onto like the outside landscape, and especially in this build as well, especially on this lot, because where I've built it, it's just got the most beautiful views. Like in the distance, there's kind of like this lighthouse. It's surrounded by a big body of water. There is a beach quite local to this lot as well. So it's got very pretty views. And so originally that little hallway space that you just saw me do was going to be the dining room. But then when I actually did the dining room, I realised that I didn't really have like an appropriate room to make that, because I felt like a lounge room of that size in this house wouldn't have been like correct, wouldn't have been appropriate. And so I thought, you know what, let's just make it into a hallway. And so it's just a nice little seating area. It's got some 2-seater sofas in it. It's also got this really big coffee table that we got from Cats and Dogs. This is what I mean by when I say it's got lots of like soft furnishings, because in that room I use like cream sofas and then lots of like fluffy rugs, but then I also use this really big table that we got from Cats and Dogs, which is a little bit more rustic. But I really like the combination of like the fluffy rug with like the rustic side table. I just really like that. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the actual family room, which you just saw me do. So that is the more kind of like informal, more like family time kind of lounge space. So in there, as you would have noticed, I have a really big fireplace. We also have 2 3-seater sofas. I also used the tool mod to get some of these debug pillows that we got from the high school years debug menu, and I basically raised them up, rotated them, and make them look like pillows that belong on the sofa. And some of them are twisted a bit so they look a little bit more like realistic, because realistically in a family room that's as comfortable as I wanted that one to feel, I feel like not every single pillow is perfectly placed. There's going to be some pillows that might have been chucked on the floor, or there might be a few skew with pillows, if you get what I mean. I feel like that's very realistic. So with some of the pillows, I rotated them more a little bit slightly. Some of them I made it look like they've fallen down off the sofa. But then as you can see, I've now moved on into the playroom. So first of all, I do want to mention, you see the fireplace? I ended up changing out the fireplace. You don't see me do it, but I really wasn't... I just wanted to use this fireplace because I thought it was really pretty and I thought it would really fit in with this room. But then as I actually finished this room and I looked at it, I was thinking, this actually does not fit with the very countryside, kind of like coastal, comfy home that I wanted to. It feels a bit more of the like get famous kind of rich kind of family because of the gold accents. And so I actually end up deleting that fireplace and I end up placing down the Parenthood one just in like a plain white swatch. I mean, like I said, you don't see me do it, but the placement of all the different objects on top of the fireplace remains the exact same. It was just the fireplace itself. It just felt too fancy for my liking. I mean, you've already seen how I've decorated some of the house. I felt like the fireplace just it didn't gel with the rest of the house, and so I decided to change it. But you can see the way that you actually get into the playroom is through the family room, which I thought was so fitting because it just feels a little bit more homey, a little bit more comforting. I can just imagine your Sims families, like maybe the parents are sitting on the sofa watching a show together, and then you've got the kid and the toddler just behind you. You kind of like within your eyesight, so you can still kind of like monitor them. And I just really like the idea. I feel like whenever I do playrooms, I'm also always have them coming off the lounge space rather than having like a separate door area, just because I don't know, I just prefer it that way. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on into the home office. So in this office, it ends up having some really nice views of the back garden. It's got one of the sliding doors. Now, originally, you would have seen at the start of the clip, I was going to make this into one room, and that was how I originally floor planned it. But then when I actually came in, I'm not joking, I must have spent about an hour and a half trying to figure out what do I do with this room, because it was such a weird shape and it was on such a weird placement as well. And I was thinking I could make it into a library, but then it's weird to have a library and then have sliding doors that go onto the outside. I feel like if you're going to have a library, it's more so going to be nestled into a house rather than being somewhere where it's going to get a lot of traffic from people coming inside and outside the house. And so I was like, I can't do a library. I was thinking I could do a music room, but then it's a bit of a weird shape for a music room. And so in the end, I thought, do you know what? I'm just going to cut it up. I'm going to make it into 2 separate rooms. We've got the little home office over here, and then on the other side, it just ends up being a hallway. But in this room, you can see that I've done a very similar thing to the dining room in terms of I tried to make like a built-in unit, which now looking back on the footage, I've now realised that I've done this quite a few times in this house. I just tried to make it very custom, this house, and make all the furniture pieces just fit the rooms perfectly and try and make it just feel like it was a very built-in house, and it had built-in features like built-in wardrobes and built-in, you know, like bookcases and built-in like cabinets into the walls and stuff like that. I did a very similar thing in this room to what I did in the dining room, but the only difference is I just used 2 bookcases instead of cabinets and just merged them in. I think the ones I use, like the bookcases, are from Cats and Dogs, and then I just used the same side table as what I used before in the dining room again. It was just in a different swatch. But then also in that room as well, it ended up being like a computer desk with a computer on it, and then I think I might have placed a globe off memory, but I think actually now I think I'm confusing that with a different room, but it ends up being like a plant in the corner. But it's just pretty much a home office. Home offices are they're quite tricky to do because realistically it's just a computer. A computer has so many different gameplay opportunities. Your Sims can do so much on a computer, and so realistically in a home office you don't really need much more. But outside of that little hallway space going into the home office, there ended up being a cat tree, because I felt like it was necessary to have a cat tree somewhere in this house. So there was a cat tree, and then there also ended up being the fish tank, which I think you might have seen. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next space. So this is the more kind of like formal lounge seating area. So in here I use these sofas which are from the Cottage Living, I was about to say debug menu, they're not. It's because I've just pulled out some candles from the debug menu, but I use these sofas which are from Cottage Living, that expansion pack, and then you can see that now I'm actually placing down some candles, which these are from the debug menu. It's because I was looking at the debug menu as I said that, but basically I tried to create some like custom candlesticks. I've done this a ton of times, but I don't think I've really mentioned it that much, but basically we don't really have any individual candles and candlesticks in the game, and so a good thing to do is if you've got the Vampires game pack and then you've also got the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, we have these candles from Eco Lifestyle in the debug menu. Your Sims can make them, but then we also have these really big kind of like platform things from Vampires. Basically use the tool mod, size them down really small, size them down basically to the size of the candle, and then you can just merge them into tables, into fireplaces, onto any kind of surface that you want, and then it kind of looks like a candlestick. In all fairness, they're actually pretty customizable as well, because you can change the colour of the candle as well as the colour of actual like the stand itself, because the stand, there's 3 different versions and like 3 different kind of like decorations, how it's like carved out. I just use one which I don't even know how to describe how it's carved out, but there's 3 different styles of the platform that you can use from Vampires, and then there is also a ton of different candle options in terms of colours, shapes and sizes, but I just use like the blank standard white ones because I just feel like they look best for like candle decorations, which I actually feel like we are really lacking in candlesticks in the game, which is an odd thing to point out, but I'm only pointing it out because I feel like having candles as just kind of like purely decoration is something that is very in terms of interior design, I think anyway, from what I've seen. And so I'm surprised that The Sims haven't added more like candlesticks and just stuff like that. I mean, I've got a ton of it in custom content, but I'm surprised that we don't have any in the actual game itself. But either way, in this room, as you can see, I just placed down the fireplace. I merged in a painting on top of the fireplace. There's also a big coffee table in the middle. I placed down a tea set, which I think in total there might be like 3 or 4 different tea sets within the house. And the one that I placed down is from the Wedding Stories game pack. So it's the one that your Sims can actually interact with and they can actually brew themselves some tea, which is really cute. I actually get my Sims to do that quite often in my own personal gameplay. But also in this room, as you can see, on the left hand side, I use these bookcases which are from, I think, Discover University, off memory. I'm pretty sure they're from Discover University or possibly even StrangerVille. Again, I'm pretty sure them ones are made for the medium wall height. So again, I just size them down and then merge them in together. And then on the opposite side, I wanted there to be a bit of like a trophy cabinet, a bit of like a fancy like kind of show everyone all your achievement kind of cabinets. Even though the family that I designed, or I say designed, I'm actually building this and I haven't really mentioned it because I spent so long at the start of this video talking about what's on the inside of the house. I didn't really speak too much about the individual family members, which I'm planning on talking about when I actually get into the rooms, because I have built this for my save file and I've actually built it for a pre-existing family, but I was imagining that one of the family members is really into sports and does like fairly well, or maybe one of the parents did quite well when they were in school or something, so they've got a lot of different trophies, a lot of different achievements, and they wanted to showcase it somewhere. So I basically tried to build yet another kind of like built-in cabinet unit system, and what I did is I got these cabinets that we got from base game, and I got the really tall ones and then also the shorter ones. I placed the taller ones either side and then had this kind of like gap in the middle where I placed down the smaller ones. Hopefully you're following along with me, but basically I placed them down and then there was kind of like this empty space below it. I then found this object that we got from the high school years expansion pack, and it's basically like a trophy cabinet. I'm pretty sure you're meant to place it in like the principal's office in a high school, or maybe just in like high school like hallways or something. But basically I got the object and I sized it up a little bit, and I got two of them, I merged them together and then I moved them into the floor, and then it kind of looks like a trophy unit kind of thing. I don't know, I quite liked it, but I just basically didn't want to have another bookcase wall, because to me, with the bookcases that I use, where they're so big and they kind of take up the majority of the wall space, if I feel like if I would have had them on both sides of the wall, it would have, one, looked a little bit too repetitive, and two, it just would have felt a little bit too closed in and squished together, and I didn't want it to feel like that. So I decided, do you know what, I'm just going to build like a little cabinet trophy unit. Like I said, maybe one of the parents of this household, maybe they were into sports once upon a time, or maybe it's the teenager. Like I said, I have kind of got like individual stories, not too much, but I have got a little bit of a backstory for the Sims that are going to be living in this house in my save file. But I just didn't want to speak about it once I finished talking about what was on the inside of the house at the start of the video, because I always like to try and talk about what's on the screen so you can kind of like follow along with me. But when I move on to the upstairs and I start doing the bedrooms, then I'll tell you a little bit more about the Sims and their individual personalities. But anyway, as you can see, currently I'm just going around and just doing the pool house. I am really surprised I left this as late in the video as what I did. I think I was just too excited to get in and start furnishing like the kitchen, the dining room, the lounge space, that I just kind of like pushed this to the side. But this is a little pool house in the back garden, so your Sims can walk in through them bi-folding doors. There is a bar in here, there is a mini fridge, there is an ice cream machine, there is also the darts board in the corner as well, and then over here is kind of like a little, I want to say, storage room for the pool. So basically I wanted there to be somewhere where your Sims could basically keep all the different like pool lounges, all the different pool equipment. So maybe they've got some beach balls, maybe they've got like ping pong things that they play with in the pool and stuff. I just basically wanted to have a little room dedicated to like the pool that wasn't the bar area. And so in that room I basically started off by placing down this shelving unit that we got from, I believe, the Island Living expansion pack. But the shelving unit itself has got loads of different goggles on it. It's got a few different like wetsuits. I'm pretty sure there is an oxygen tank, which I don't think this household is going to be using, but either way it's attached to the unit, so I can't remove it. But I basically started off by placing that down into the room, and then I had the idea to place down at some of them little like pool floaties as well. So basically what I did is I found two of them and I kind of like merged one on top of the other to make it look like they're kind of stacked. And then I found the pizza slice one, which I don't think I've ever used the pizza slice floaty. In both my builds, in my own personal gameplay, I never use it, but I thought it was quite fun, so I placed it down into that room as well. But with that one, I basically elevated it and then rotated it and made it look like it was like leaning up against the wall. The idea that I had in my mind when I was doing it was maybe this was the most recent used like pool floaty, and your Sims, instead of just putting it on top of the other one, they've kind of like left it at an angle so then all the water can kind of like drip off it. I don't know, it was just what I was thinking when I was decorating that room. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved on to the upstairs of the house, and I started off by furnishing one of the bathrooms. Now, I do want to mention, I did decide to cut out the home gym as well as the garage, which I really didn't want to do, but with them left in, put it this way, just the garage footage itself, so just that one room, ended up being 5 minutes worth of footage, and that was sped up. And the home gym as well, I just felt like wasn't too interesting, and I wanted to try and keep, and it's ironic because it is a 57-minute video, but I wanted to try and keep the footage and all the stuff in that was most relevant as possible, so I decided to cut it out. So I hope you don't mind, but as always, there'll be screenshots of absolutely everything at the end of the video. So I've taken, I think, 3 different screenshots of every single corner of both the gym, and then also a ton of different screenshots of also the garage as well, just because I didn't want to make the video, was about to say too long, but it is like an hour long video in it. But I didn't want to make it unnecessarily long if it was things that aren't particularly interesting. And I feel like with a garage space and also with a home gym space, there's only so much that you can do. I still tried to make the home gym feel a little bit more, you know, like countryside, a little bit more less modern, because I feel like a lot of the different gym equipment that we have in the game is more towards like the modern style. I tried to make it feel like I fit in with the rest of the house, but like I said, I'll have screenshots at the end of the video of both the garage space and then also the home gym. But anyway, as you can see, I just finished off the bathroom, which I am so happy with the way I did the bathroom. I basically did it so the bathtub is sitting on a platform, but then behind the bathtub itself there's a higher platform to make it look like a shelf, if you get what I mean. I mean, you would have just seen what I did, and hopefully I explained it well enough, but I mean, you would have just seen it. But I'm just so happy the way the bathroom came together, because I tried to make it, again, feel a little bit more built in. I tried to just do little custom pieces, as well as, like, I tried to make the cabinets or, like, the counter pieces feel a little bit more built in for the sink area. So I placed down 2 walls either side to make it feel like the sink area was kind of, like, nestled into the wall. And I'm really happy with the way that all the bathrooms in this house came together. There is 2 bathrooms, which are more so my favourite ones out of all of them, but I'm only pointing it out because, you know, on the outside of the build we have that kind of like tower piece, like the circular walls that I was talking about, which were a bit of a mare. Well, on the inside, upstairs level, I decided to make that room into a bathroom, but I did it so like the bathtub kind of like curves around with the wall, and then there's kind of just all the light that comes in. It's just very pretty, just very peaceful in there. But anyway, moving on and actually getting on and actually talking about what I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I've now started furnishing some of the bedrooms. So this is the toddler's room. Now, this is probably a good time to start introducing the actual family that I'm building this house for. Like I said, I just didn't want to talk over when I was actually furnishing completely different rooms that weren't kind of relevant to the storyline or the Sims themselves. So this house, this whole entire house, I decided to build for my save file, and I decided to build it for the Delgato family. So the household originally consists of 4 Sims. We have a mum, a dad, a little boy, and then a little girl, and then they also have a dog and a cat. Now, they have a little bit of a household bio when you originally go into a brand new save file, and it's kind of like a direction that you could take the family if you want to play with them. I basically took their original bio, which I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but basically it stated that the mum, whose name I believe is pronounced Supriya, I'm really sorry if I've mispronounced that, but basically it's her dream to one day open up a vet clinic. I believe the direction that the Sims team wanted to kind of give off was she's always wanted to open up this vet clinic. It's kind of like her dream. It's something that she's always wanted to do, but she's always kind of been like a stay-at-home parent, whereas her husband, whose name is Justin, has kind of been like the breadwinner, a bit of the money maker of the household, and they were a bit anxious about basically her going and opening this vet clinic, and a bit anxious about her then husband, you know, having to kind of like control the kids, because I think his parenting skills aren't all that great or something, or at least that was what they was implying in the original bio. And so I basically took the idea and decided to run with it. And so in my save file, this family will be the owners of Brindleton Bay's vet clinic, which I'm yet to build, so eventually I will be building that. But yeah, they're going to own their little vet clinic in town. And then you might have noticed, because I've mentioned that originally the household has 4 members, I've now added an extra 2 household members into their family tree. One reason, I just feel like they're kind of like a family to have a really big family, both in their household and then both outside of like their current household. So in my save file, I'm going to go around, I'm going to make it so they've got like brothers and sisters and cousins, and I just imagine them to be really big family people. And so that's why I decided to give them a teenager. And then also there is a grandmother, which I imagine is Supriya's mother. I imagine when they probably took the leap for her to go and open up her vet clinic, and you know, Justin, her husband, decided, you know what, I'm gonna settle down, I'm gonna maybe just take some time off work. I was thinking that they could possibly be a bit of a freelancer, but I don't really know what kind of freelancer job would suit them, because there's different types of freelancer careers that you've got. There's like a candle maker, there is a writer, there is like a graphic designer, but I don't really see any that fit their skills, because Justin's skills, I was looking at all their different like skills and basically their personalities when I was building this house, but Justin's skills have, I think, a couple in charisma, 1 or 2 in logic, and I think a couple in comedy. And so I was imagining them to be a little bit of a jokester. I imagine that maybe they go to comedy clubs quite often. I was thinking that maybe they could do something related to comedy. Maybe they're a writer and they write jokes for a living or something. I don't know. Either way, I imagine the dad to be a stay-at-home parent, and basically the grandmother has kind of like moved in and kind of helps with just the general upkeep of the house in terms of making sure the kids go to school on time, making sure like dinner is on the table, and just kind of like overall a bit of a homemaker, is kind of like a shared a shared thing that both the grandmother and the dad of his household do. But as you can see, I'm currently going around and just furnishing Pierce's room. Now Pierce is their son, their little boy. Now the little boy, originally, I think when you open a brand new save file, he's got this self-assured trait, and he's also, I was looking at his grade, he has a grade B in school, and he's also got the social butterfly aspiration. So all around, he's just a good kid. I imagine that he probably gets quite good grades. Maybe he's on like the football team or like the soccer team, whatever you want to call it, and then maybe goes and has like a group of friends that he sees every so often. Just all round, I imagine this family to be really wholesome. I didn't really imagine there to be any like dark twist, because sometimes when I do save file storylines and I kind of have ideas for Sims that are going to live in my save file and I've got all these different backstories, sometimes there is a little bit of like some dark, not dark, but sometimes there is a little bit of like hidden things within the family tree. Don't imagine that to be the case with this family. They're very wholesome. They're just all round a really nice family. Maybe I'm only thinking this because whenever I play the game myself, I always get my Sims to be friends with Justin. I don't know what it is. I always see him walking their dog because they've got a dog which I think off the top of my head is called Blue. They've got a dog which is called Blue, and then a cat which I can't remember the name of the cat, but the cat's name is something absolutely ridiculous. It's really funny, but I always see in my own personal gameplay, whenever I play in the world of Brindleton Bay, I always see Justin out walking the dog, and so I always get my Sims to eventually become friends with this family. Maybe that's the reason why I want their backstory to be a little bit wholesome and nothing like no dark twists to it or whatnot. But yeah, I imagine the little boy to be quite a social kid. You know, he's got a little games console area in his bedroom, so maybe he often has his friends around. Like I said, there is an attic space within like the top of the garage, so if you wanted to, you could get it so Piers has like a little bit of a club hangout, even though his bedroom is really big. And to be honest, I don't think you actually need it, because everything that we put into a club hangout for kids is either in his bedroom or in the playroom. But I mean, the idea is there. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into the next bedroom, which is the teenager's bedroom. You've already seen me do the toddler's bedroom, which is Evie. Evie originally has the angel trait. Like she's a really good kid, basically. And from the impressions that I got from both Pierce's grades in school, his traits, his social aspiration, and then also Evie's kind of like trait as well, I just imagine them to be really well-raised kids. Like they're just a wholesome family. And so I basically imagine a very similar situation for this teenager. Now, this teenager obviously doesn't exist or it doesn't exist yet, but I basically added them onto the family just because I felt like the family needed another member. I haven't got a name for them. Feel free to give me some suggestions. I mean, they've got a brother called Piers and they've got a little sister called Evie, so I'm open to any name suggestions, so let me know what you think I should name them. But just like his little brother and his little sister, I was imagining that this kid is just all round a really good teenager. I imagine they probably get really good grades in school. I imagine that they're probably on a few different like extracurricular activities, so maybe they play sports. Maybe that's where all the trophies come from in the downstairs, like, you know, the more I was about to say informal, the more formal space. Maybe that's where all the trophies come from. Maybe they're just really good in school and they're just consistently competing in like basketball tournaments or football tournaments or something. Maybe they're not so much like the best athlete in sense of they're not the captain, but maybe they're just a really active member of all their different extracurricular activities, and so whenever they do like awards or whenever they win stuff, maybe just every single member gets one, because I don't imagine them to be like the best, if you get what I mean. I just imagine them to be like an average Joe. You know, in every single like TV show or every single film that you watch, there's always that one character that's just kind of like an average Joe Sim. They're really nice, they've got a bunch of friends, there's no like drama around them. I just imagine that for a teenager, and I feel like for my save file there's going to be so many teenagers that are just friends with them, because I imagine just like his little brother, he's probably a really big social butterfly. But then there is also another member of the family what I decided to add on, which is the grandmother, which I've already told you about. Oh, well, I mean, I say that. I've told you about their presence, and I've told you that I've decided to give this family an extra household member as well as the teenager. And I've told you as well that I imagine them to be a bit of a stay-at-home grandmother, also kind of helps look after the kids with Justin, who is her son-in-law. I just imagine her to be just a wholesome little nan or grandmother, what you want to call it. I call my grandmother nan or nanny, so you know, just a wholesome household member basically. I imagine them to do a lot of knitting, a lot of baking. I imagine them to be quite active in sense of they often go out and do like camping trips with the family. They maybe do a lot of fishing with the kids as well. Just all around a really wholesome grandmother. And then you've got the parents, which like I said, I imagine that the mum owns the Brindleton Bay vet clinic, which I'm still yet to build, so I will eventually be building that. And then there is also the dad, who is just like a stay-at-home parent. But that was pretty much the the storyline that I've got for the Sims that are going to be living in this house. It's not as in-depth as some of my other ones, but like I said, I didn't want there to be any dark twists or any like drama happening with this family, just because I really like them. In my own personal gameplay, my Sims are always mates with them just because they're just a really nice family to interact with, and there's no like mean traits, there's no like bad traits in any of them, and they're just all round just wholesome people, or wholesome Sims, what I want to call it. But anyway, getting back to talking about what I'm actually doing right now. So as you would have seen, I did just do the grandmother's bedroom, and now I'm moving on into the walk-in wardrobe. I am just absolutely obsessed with this room. I'm so happy how it turned out. This is what I mean by how I was talking about I was trying to make it custom and trying to make all the walk-in wardrobe pieces kind of fit in with the rest of the house, because you would have seen the actual item that, you know, like the clothes hangers, that object that we got from Dream Home Decorator, the thing that clips to, that's a really bad way of describing it, but hopefully follow along with me. But basically the original thing that's meant to snap to, originally when you pull it out, it's very modern, it's very just not the rest of the house. I mean, you've seen how I've decorated the rest of the house. It's not modern in that sense. It's not like out of date, it's not outdated, but it's just not that kind of modern style home. It's a little bit more like warm, a little bit more comfy, a little bit more just wholesome overall. And so basically what I did is I got the thing that clothes will snap to, sized it down really small, and I just merged it into these shelves that we got from Cats and Dogs. That way it fits with the rest of the house, but then it's also still a walk-in wardrobe. And again, like I've already mentioned, I have playtested the house. It all works. It literally works completely fine. Didn't even run into a problem with it. I did kind of half expect to run into a problem with this dressing room, just because sometimes the way that the clothes can be hanging, sometimes your Sims can't click on them and then they like wave their hands up in the air and they're like, I can't change my clothes. It wasn't the case whatsoever in the room, because it all happened to work completely fine. And I even sized down some of the clothes. I don't know if you noticed, but when I was trying to merge in some of the clothes rails together to make the clothes look a little bit more like full, I sized some of them down because I didn't want the hangers to be clipping into other hangers. So you might have noticed I sized down some of the clothes. Even the sized down ones work. It's just the whole entire room, the whole entire house is completely usable. So if you do want to download this house, you will not run into any problems, which is absolutely lovely. But anyway, moving on. As you can see, I've now moved on into the last room, which is the parents' bedroom. So in here, I didn't really know what to place in here because they've already got their ensuite next door, which, I mean, I say that, you wouldn't really place a toilet or a bathtub into this bedroom. Might be a bit strange. A bathtub, not so much, but a toilet would be a bit strange. But there was already like a separate room where they keep all their clothes, and realistically, in parents' bedrooms, what do you place? And so I was really struggling with the room, so I ended up placing down a dressing table, which the one that I use is from the vintage Glamour stuff pack. Now the one that I used it in this like kind of like grey swatch. I found the most perfect chair to fit it. The one that I've used is from the high school years expansion pack, but it's just, I don't think I've ever used that chair for a dressing table chair, and I think going forward I might, because it just fitted the room so perfectly, and I'm just so happy the way it turned out. But as you can see, I'm just going around the room now, finishing it off. I added some more of them feathers that your Sims can actually find in the world of Brindleton Bay on the wall. I also placed them down around, like scattered around the inside of the house in like hallways and different areas. But I'm just going to go around now, finish up by doing the exterior balcony, which is kind of like the parents' private balcony, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you can just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you so much, especially if you made it all the way to the end. And as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe. And hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speed building video. Bye guys.